Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitusTimes podcast, presented by MitusTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitusTimes podcast. My guest today is Mr. Shawn Krebsbach. I'm very excited for this because I've been trying to get him on for a while. How are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I know, MitusTimes podcast doesn't really get to everybody, but if you go back and listen to podcast 100, I let people do a Q&A and I answered their questions. And one of the questions was, who would I really like to have on the podcast? And my answer was you. And ever since then, I've been trying to get you on. So I'm very excited for this one here.
Yeah, I'm a busy guy. I know you've been messaging me quite a while, and it just hasn't worked out. And luckily, we got together today.
I don't mind getting on people's nerves.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, your car is very special. The autocross community or the high performance driving community doesn't really get enough credit when it comes to the kind of the face of Mitsubishi's and the community and stuff like that. I know that what you're doing is very cool and just as special as a Evo out there running sevens, because you're really out there representing what an Evo can do and how good it can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a special car. I got mine about 10 years ago, I think, and I haven't let it go since. And it's just been an ongoing project for the last 10 years, and it's gotten better and better every year.
Love it. So Shawn, what is it that kind of got you into autocross and motorsports in general?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I had a couple cars when I was young. I got my license when I was 14, and I had a '86 Honda Prelude that I don't know. I'd always liked racing games and Gran Turismo and that type of stuff, and started modding that car. Simple things like exhaust and everything, and just to feel the difference that it would make was cool to me. And just slowly got into wrenching and sold that car, bought a faster one, and then shortly after that, and I think a year after I got my license, Fast and Furious came out and loved that, and that's when that whole scene took off, and I was kind of right there with it. Didn't get into like the show car stuff, but anywhere I went, it was as fast as I could drive, see how fast the car could go, and it's just kind of been in my blood and born with it, I guess.
Love it. So was it those? I always love to kind of hear this backstory, Shawn. Was it the Evo and the racing games that kind of drew you to, man, I would love to have an Evo one day?
I didn't know much about Evos. I'm kind of blind to a lot of stuff, I guess. I had an RSX for the longest time, for about 7 or 8 years, and went down the rabbit hole of modding the absolute crap out of that thing. Supercharged it, built transmission, all kinds of stuff, and that's when I started winning a bunch of autocross, like local stuff in North Dakota, and got a bunch of, raw fastest time of the day and PAX times. And then I think it was like 2015, no, it was earlier than that, 2012, 13, went to a MA Performance's Proving Grounds in Brainerd, Minnesota, which was a bigger event. People from different states were there and everything. And I got my absolute ass handed to me by, I think it was Ronnie Solomon and Andy Smenegard and Brandon Randbeck were there. And a couple of them had Evos, and I think Andy was driving a Subaru at the time. But I mean, I was fast and winning in North Dakota. So not that I have a big ego or anything, but I went there and I was getting beat by in the 30-second course, I was getting beat by 2 or 3 seconds. And it's just something I wasn't used to. I'm like, what are these guys doing? So got to know them over the years. And the biggest thing that I learned from that was just like getting to know those guys and riding with their cars and asking them questions and all that stuff. And you learn a lot doing that. And just learned a lot about car setup, because the RSX that I had was fast, but it wasn't set up well at all. It was very unbalanced, hard to drive. And I got into an Evo because of Ronnie Solomon. Like I said, I think it was a year later, I went to the next Brainerd event and I was getting my ass kicked again. And Ronnie goes, go drive this Evo. And it was a very well set up Evo, all the bolt-ons, suspension mods, all kinds of stuff. And it was so fast that I couldn't drive it. Like in a straight line, you were so fast between cones, cone to cone, that my brain couldn't keep up with what the car was doing. And it did everything you wanted to. It turned well, it accelerated well, it braked well. And I'm like, okay, I think I want one of these. And I think 4 months later, I had parted out the RSX and started looking for an Evo. And I think August of that year, September, in the fall, I ended up buying mine.
So the timing kind of worked out, and you were kind of inspired by other people who were doing autocross at the time.
Yeah, I've always been really competitive, and I guess that was what kind of drove me to get faster and faster with cars and stuff. The RSX wasn't the platform to go with. I was already getting beat by 2 or 3 seconds by other guys, so decided to go with an Evo and immediately did all the bolt-on stuff, basic stuff to that car, and started keeping up with faster and faster guys. Became friends with more and more of them, and just kind of snowballed into a racing. I don't know if you want to call it career, but just got more and more into racing and just kept following that path.
And that path has really led to the top, Shawn. For people that are listening that don't know, the King of the Mountain is kind of the Super Bowl for autocross. Am I right?
Yeah. There's a lot of cars there, and I love the biggest thing about King of the Mountain that I like is there's hardly any rules. I mean, the rules are basically 2,900 pounds, 200 treadwear car, and it has to be a production car. And that's basically it. And you get a lot of people that have won multiple national SCCA autocross champions. So it's good to go up against those guys. I've never been to the SCCA nationals, but would love to go someday. But to come out on top with all those guys there with really no rules on your cars, it's been a pretty big accomplishment.
Not once, but twice.
Twice, yep.
That
should have been more if the Evo would have cooperated, but you can't do nothing about car breaking down.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just a part of the game. Well, I know, thinking back to, your time in the RSX and seeing these guys at Evo at the Brainerd event, you probably had no idea, oh, one day, there's going to be this event called King of the Mountain and I'm going to win it twice. I think you're the first repeat winner, right?
Yep, first one to win it twice. Yep.
Yeah. So, to me that's just a crazy story and I love every minute of it. Do you remember kind of, Shawn, like your first memory of walking the pits and watching competition and thinking like this autocross is what I want to do?
I don't know if I started out as that being the one for me. I did a lot of time attack and stuff before that. And my buddy Jeremy Swenson went to the first one. He said, "Hey guys, I'm going out to this autocross in Pennsylvania or whatever." And none of us went with him that year, the very first year. And he ended up winning it that year and won 10 grand. And once he won, we're like, all right, well, we've done autocross before and we're pretty close. So like, all right, we'll go out there. We'll try to win too. And the first couple went okay. I had a really bad year. I think my third or fourth year. Just was trying too hard. Car setup wasn't working and got really frustrated that time. And I love how the event is set up with 2 autocrosses and then kind of the knockout shootout that they have at the end. It puts a lot of pressure on the drivers to, you can't hit cones. You got to be clean. You got to be consistent. It's kind of the best of both worlds. It puts a lot of pressure on people and you got to perform.
Absolutely. And, it's really edge of your seat kind of stuff. It's the kind, I love watching it, even going back and watching, your 2022 run, watching the shootout and kind of being like, wow, this is more entertaining than, stuff I would see on NASCAR or F1 or whatever like that. I think that their concept, how they have it laid out is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really fun. I love what Ryan and those guys and Ramey and all those guys have put together. And it's not so much just the event and how it's ran. They do a great job there, but the actual autocross courses that they put together on that track are a lot of fun to drive. I mean, most autocrosses are just a flat parking lot, but here you actually have some hills and you got to deal with banked corners and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun to drive.
Now, Shawn, to the untrained eye, this is another aspect about your car that I really like. If it wasn't for, the graphics and the wing, your car looks almost stock. So I want to hear about the build process and the current setup that you're running.
It might look simple. I think it's just like the outside appearance of it because it's still got stock fenders and all that stuff, stock bumper. But everything underneath, basically the whole car has been changed. Like I could go through the build, I guess, but like anything under the sheet metal has been changed in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, it's got a built 2.2 liter motor. It's got a built head. We rev it to about 8,600 RPMs. For autocross setup, it makes about 450 wheel, 450 torque. The transmission is fairly stock. It's got a straight cut gear in it. The T-case and the rear diff are both built by TRE. They're both aftermarket LSDs. It's got full suspension by Fortunato. It's got drop knuckles on all four corners. Big brake kit up front. I mean, it's all business underneath. It's just the outside exterior that makes it look a little unassuming.
For sure. The wing really shows you that the car means business, but that also is one of the most aesthetically fitting for the Evo shape that I feel like you really nailed it out of the park with the whole exterior setup. Even the red, kind of vinyl graphics or paint or whatever that is, that I think that just tops it off.
Yep. No, I thought a lot about kind of every part that I put on the car, and it's like I said, it's been a 10-year build, and I've always bought stuff kind of in chunks every year or whatever like that. Over the winter, you go through a little bit of a build process, but yeah, the graphics was something I just came up with on my computer playing around with Photoshop, and it just was playing around with it, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's it. It just hit me like, dang, that looks good. We'll put that on the car, and it ended up looking great. And like I said, the other graphics with the logos and stuff just kind of matched other colors on the car. And like, not to toot my own horn, everybody loves their car, but I really love the way it look of my car.
And rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Shawn, over the years, you've probably went through a lot of parts and a lot of different setups and tried this and tried that. Has there been one single modification that has led to the single biggest lap gain? Because, on here, I've had autocross people, circuit race people on here before. They always say seat time, and I understand that seat time is very important, but is there one thing that if I wanted to get serious in autocross that I should really focus on?
The biggest thing you could focus on, if you're just starting out, I would, as far as a car goes, find something that's super reliable. That would be where I would start. And the next thing would be to just start talking to people who are doing autocross already and figure out kind of what their thoughts are. Like, anybody who's into cars is going to tell you what they think about what's going on at autocross or what cars they think. The more people you get to know, the easier it is to make decisions on what you want to do. And you can learn so much faster if you start talking to people and learn from them rather than trying to do it on your own. So that's probably the biggest takeaway I would get, is just start talking to people, get all the information from them, and you'll be on your way.
Definitely got to have the sponge mentality and soak up as much as you can.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, Shawn, we hear a lot from the guys who take their Evos around corners that there's some oiling issues and overheating issues, maybe some things like that. Is there any weak spots or ongoing challenges that you have with this car?
Yeah, oil catch can. Filling up catch cans was my biggest problem for a few years, especially once I built the motor. These cars have a lot of oil blow by, and I went to what was it called? Buttonwillow one year in 2021, I think it was, or 2020. And I could not keep oil in that car to save my life. We were pushing probably a quart or two every lap, and there was oil. I mean, the whole thing was soaked underneath. So that's probably one of the biggest problems I had, was just the catch can issues. And I ended up going to a dry sump, and that's kind of solved all those issues. It's a dumb problem to have, and it's a very expensive fix, but it's also insurance on the engine, so you shouldn't have to worry about oil pressure or anything like that. So that's kind of how I solved that problem. That was the biggest one for the longest time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like the dry sump kind of goes, if you're gonna make your Evo perform in this type of racing, a dry sump has to be on the back of your mind when you're first starting this build.
Yeah. Yep. There's other options now, like the Infinite Evo pan and stuff like that, but you're still going to have a drain back catch can, and it's obviously cheaper, but it doesn't work as well, I don't think. So if you're building a serious Evo track car, a dry sump is probably the way to go. Buy once, cry once, they all say.
Exactly. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
So, Shawn, King of the Mountain typically is the third week in August or somewhere around there. That makes your season leading up to King of the Mountain kind of shortish, especially being in North Dakota. I imagine the summer months are pushed back a little bit. How much goes into the off season to keep this car competitive, or was it like when you won in 2022, like this is the perfect setup? Now all I have to do is maintain it.
Yeah, I haven't really done the car hasn't changed in probably 3 years. The setup that I have just works, and I don't get a lot of seat time in the car actually. It might be one or two autocrosses that I do before I go to King of the Mountain. There's enough runs, like I feel in at King of the Mountain, you get I think it's 6 runs the first day, 6 runs the next day, um, before you actually get into the competition, and that's enough time to like you get used to the car again. You kind of get your legs back, get up to speed. That's enough time to do all that, I think. For me, anyways. I don't know if it takes anybody else longer, but
Gotcha. And Shawn, obviously you're pushing this car to the limits that it's far exceeding what it was built to do. How do you balance that reliability while also being able to get this performance out of it that has allowed you to win King of the Mountain twice?
you kind of got to stay on top of the car. The biggest thing we do kind of in between runs or in between events is you nut and bolt check everything. I mean, after every run, it's just kind of going through the motions, check oil, check fuel, check your lug nuts, check tire pressure, all that kind of stuff. But in between events and stuff like that, it's, get the car up on a lift, check all the bolts on the suspension, make sure no brakes are loose, there's no fluids leaking or anything like that. That can help, eliminate some problems. I've caught plenty of things in between events or in between sessions at a racetrack where they're like, why is that like that? Something's just rattling or whatever. If it's a noise, I've had plenty of times where I'm on track and you'll hear something that sounds just a little bit off and you can almost never go to yourself, oh, it'll be fine. It's nothing. It's always something. So you got to stop and check your car. And I do that stuff a lot.
Okay. Love it. Now, we've had guys on here before that, autocross is their main motorsport, and one of the biggest things they talk about is how important the tire is and getting the widest tire underneath the Evo. I want to talk. I want to pick your brain, Shawn, and talk about what tires you've had success with.
So I started out with the Evo. I think I had RU71Rs back in the day, and that's what I used for time attack and autocross. And then a few years later, the AO52 came out, and I've been exclusively AO52 since then. I've never had a big budget for like testing any kind of tires or anything like that, or going out before an event and just trying out the setup or trying out a set of tires or anything like that. I've never had the budget for that, so AO52 has just always worked for me, and that's what I've used for ever since they came out. I think it was 2016 or something like that, or 17. I've been using those for the last 10 years, and it's something I've driven on forever, and it's consistent to me, and I know how to drive on it. So that's kind of why I haven't switched. And also cost. I mean, tires for that car, are $1,500 or $2,000 a set, and I just don't have the time or the money to go buy another set just to see if it's a little bit faster.
Understood. Okay. And then, Shawn, as you said, the King of the Mountain kind of gives you some banked surface, and going from a flat surface to a banked surface, things like that. When you're doing the one or two autocross events before King of the Mountain, and it's obviously flatter, parking lot style, do you change the setup at all? And if so, like how different is the change from a flat surface to the King of the Mountain course?
I don't make any changes really. I'm I tinker with my car, obviously, and I don't really do much tuning with it. The car, as far as the setup goes, the car is a little understeery, and I've been trying to get it to oversteer a little bit more every year, unsuccessfully. But yeah, when I go to an autocross and the car isn't doing what I want, one of the big things that I do is I don't try to make the car do what it can't do. A lot of people will different competitors I've heard over the years will be having problems with the autocross, whether the car won't brake or it won't make this turn, whatever, and they're just trying to force the car to do that. I usually if my car can't do it, I don't make it do it. The car can only do what it can do. So going through corners and setup and stuff like that, I try not to make too much changes. I'll just drive the car kind of as is and drive it as fast as I can the way it is kind of my philosophy, I guess. That way I can concentrate more on the track, my line, that type of stuff. And I'm not so much getting caught up in like trying to change the car throughout the weekend.
Sure. Okay. Well, Shawn, I've done some ride-alongs with some of my friends doing autocross during the Mitsubishi shootout. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was that, autocross event could be, 30 seconds, but during that 30 seconds, there's absolutely no break for the driver. So it's not like, drag racing where it's just a few seconds at a time or a circuit race where you might have a long straightaway where you can, readjust your belts or do whatever, kind of give yourself a break. How do you walk us through your mental process during a run?
As far as how I approach autocross, I kind of think of it like a puzzle, I guess. I kind of have I have a really good memory and kind of a photographic memory, so it's easy for me to memorize stuff. And I usually work my way up to pace. So like the first few runs, 1, 2, and 3 or something like that are quick, but I'm not like pushing the car as fast as I can go. And I'm more or less just kind of memorizing the course and figuring out what the car likes, where I should be, kind of the line and all that stuff. And then, yeah, it turns into kind of muscle memory for me. Kind of the one thing I'm proud of in King of the Mountain is last year when I was in the finals. This is where muscle memory kind of comes in a little bit, but I ran 3 runs in the finals and they were all within like a tenth of each other on like a 52-second course or whatever. But that kind of shows you just how, I don't know, strange I am or weird I am, I guess, but I'm just able to kind of put a timer to everything. Like you're on the throttle so long, you turn here, you brake there, and it just turns into like this. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just kind of reacting to what the car's doing. And it's kind of a blur, I guess. Like it's hard to explain how you go through an entire autocross run, but when you're done, I mean, luckily the cones are still up and the time is on the board.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it almost feels like you hold your breath for the entire time, and then once you cross the line, you can finally exhale.
No, I don't really get worked up. Anybody who's met me would probably say I'm like the calmest, coolest, collected person. Like I don't really get anxious. The most I get is kind of a little adrenaline rush, like the first run of the day. I'll get like that, that adrenaline rush, and you'll get the heartbeat going a little bit. But after that, it's just like business at hand, basically. I'm very, like I said, calm and I don't get excited about stuff, I guess, but it allows me to concentrate more on driving.
Yeah, I mean, and that's obviously been probably a key to your success in this, I would say.
Yeah, yep. You can see some drivers will get like I don't know if it's the pressure that gets to them or the nighttime or the dark or the crowd or, the live stream or anything like that. But you can tell some people get just a little antsy, and that's not going to help you.
Yeah. And Shawn, one thing that while I was, watching cars go, one after another, I noticed that if the guy maybe didn't launch as well as he had hoped, or maybe, hit a cone early on, it really threw him off for the rest of the pass. How do you kind of readjust yourself mid-race if something happens?
That's tough to do. I think it was the year before 2021, I got a couple cones and ended up losing it. And it was the same exact thing. Like I was ahead and knew I had hit a cone, and your immediate reaction is to like, all right, I got to drive faster. Or no, it wasn't a cone. My front tires were overheating. So my car was understeering in like the second run. And I thought I was going slower and slower. So I tried to drive faster and faster, and I ended up picking up a cone later on. And the time was still there. I just kind of got in my own head, like didn't stay my normal calm, cool, collected, and ended up losing that year. I think just because I thought I was going slow, tried to go faster and made a mistake, and that can bite you just like it did.
Yeah. And it's almost one of those like slow is smooth, smooth is fast kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's something that I try to teach if anybody asks me for advice in autocross and stuff like that. Um, I'll tell you guys a story of my brother is is the biggest is the worst at this. I tried to drive at like 9.5, 9.9 tenths or whatever, just under, so I'm not out of control. And my brother drives at like 11 tenths or 12 tenths. And my biggest advice to him always is if you go just a little bit slower, you're gonna drive faster. But it's a lot more fun to be out of control.
Yeah, and yeah, that's often where mistakes start to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's one thing that I feel like is kind of an art in autocross is balancing the risk with consistency when it comes to making multiple passes on the same course.
Mhm.
That's definitely one of my favorite aspects of autocross in general. Well, Shawn, would you say that there are any particular driving techniques or driving styles that you favor, trail braking, throttle steering, something like that?
I kind of do. I use all those techniques throughout an autocross course. Like I said, I have a time attack background, and you have a lot more time on a road course, like to figure out what you need to do if you need to trail brake in or late apex, early apex, all that stuff. But all those techniques are still in an autocross course. Everything is just super condensed down, so you can still use all of those techniques. You just got to be a lot quicker with all your reactions for all that stuff. So, yeah, I try to figure out exactly what line I want to take. If you need to late apex something to get some more speed out, or that you got a little straight coming up, you need to get some speed for that. I mean, every autocross is different. So I try to use just about everything. I mean, every course is different, and every course has the exact line that you should use. And that's where I think of it, like I said before, kind of like a puzzle. You just need to figure out the exact line and what your car can do through all of that, and kind of figure out what it will do and stay consistent on it.
Yeah, and you mentioned every course is different, and that's also one of my favorite things of autocross is if you went to your local parking lot autocross, the course may be one way, and then the next week it could be totally different.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes. I mean, obviously some courses are more fun than others, but I mean, it's always a challenge, whenever you go to a new autocross or even a new lot. I mean, they can use their lot in a completely different way that you didn't think of too. And yeah, it's fun to have something challenging and different every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, Shawn, you said you don't get a lot of seat time. Do you do any kind of like sim racing or anything like that to kind of stay sharp over the off season?
I used to. I don't really do much sim racing anymore. Probably, I don't know what it was, 6-7 years ago, we did some sim racing, and all I had was a basic Logitech, I think G29 or whatever it was, and didn't provide much feel. I had like bungee cords on the foot pedals to give you some kind of feedback, but didn't really get big into it much.
Gotcha.
Sim racing is super helpful for road course stuff. If you need to like learn a new track, I think. And unless you have a really good setup, I don't think it translates very well to just real life car driving.
That makes sense. So what is it about King of the Mountain that is different or even more difficult than regular autocross events?
I think it's just the way the whole weekend builds a little bit. Obviously there's a lot of pressure on all the drivers. You got to be, top 10 in order to make it into the shootout in your class. So you have to perform kind of every time you go out there. The first day autocross, you have to be top 10. Otherwise you're behind for the next day. If you're sitting 12th, 13th, well, you're going to have to get, 6th, 7th, 8th the next day in order to get in. So it creates a really competitive atmosphere, which I love and I kind of thrive in. And it's fun to be against all these guys who are national champions and who are also competitive, and kind of shoot the shit with them, give them some guff back and forth, and then kind of let the time talk throughout the weekend. And it's kind of one of my favorite competitions. Obviously, I've been there 7 times, but it's the most fun weekend.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a blast. And as you said, you've won it twice. Can you compare the two wins? What was different and what was kind of the same and, was the muscle memory that you were talking about?
The second one was obviously easier. I love the finals course. They've changed it a little bit, but it still has kind of the same layout. But it's just kind of like you said, the muscle memory thing, and a lot of it is just being consistent. I think in the end, I have enough time in the car to know exactly what it's going to do, kind of all the time. I can feel kind of now that I've driven it there plenty of times. I know how the car reacts. And if the tires are going to get hot or anything, we need to put water on them. I know how the surface is kind of. So all of that experience over the years of driving that event, 6 or 7 times, all adds up, and it helps obviously win.
Yeah, I mean, proof is in the pudding.
Mm-hmm.
This episode of the MitusTimes podcast is brought to you by Tao Performance Engineering. Tao Performance Engineering is a collaboration of multiple automotive and performance skill sets working together to provide the performance industry with engineered solutions and race-proven results. They have experience in professional automotive service, OE, and aftermarket drivetrain research, and product development, including product and vehicle subsystem powertrain development. These are all key attributes to the Tao team skill sets. Driven by the passion of motorsports, Tao delivers premium quality service and products to customers with varying extents of racing, from grassroots to professional race teams. Most notably, the PTE drag race shift kits for the W4A33 as well as the F4A33 automatic Mitsubishi transmissions have propelled some of the quickest and fastest DSMs to personal best, including the 2 finalists at the 2023 Shootout Street 32 class. At Tao, they specialize in developing powertrain and drivetrain solutions for racers and businesses alike, with detailed analysis and race-proven validation. Any and all systems, subsystems, and even components that affect powertrain and drivetrain are all on the table for Tao. Whether you or your business is in need of design, consultation, product development, including 3D scanning, CAD modeling, 3D printing, and component manufacturing, validation, or even in-vehicle validation consultation and execution, the TPE team is willing to help you tackle your issue. You can contact TPE today through Facebook and Instagram at TAUPERFENGR or via email at info.tauperfengr@gmail.com. Shawn, is there like a pivotal, like defining run of either of those victories that really sticks out to you?
The second one is more of my favorite. Actually, I'm going to change my answer. My first one was more of my favorite. Going into the knockout shootout is probably my favorite thing because you get into top 10 guys have to make it. They cut it down to 6, I think it is, and then they cut it down to 2. And it's really important to be number 1 in all of those. I mean, obviously everybody wants to be number 1 in each one, but if you go number 1, you go last in the next session. So you know what everybody's times are. So you kind of have a target like, okay, I ran a 52 the first time. The closest car is a 53.5 or whatever, you know what I mean? So you can, I've been lucky enough to been fast enough I can drive a little bit easier, kind of on, some might say like autopilot or whatever, but I know what I need to do to run a 52. And whenever you get down to the 1 and 2 cars, that's my favorite, because that's when I actually that's when I'm going to try to run my fastest time. And I always have every time. It's usually like a second or 8/10 or something like that I ended up pulling out. And that's another testament to the Evo as well. The Evo is the only car I know of that when you drive it harder and harder, it goes faster and faster. Like some rear-wheel drive cars, BMWs or Corvettes or something, the wilder you get, the more you're kind of going to get out of control and lose time. Where in Evo, I don't know what it is about the car, if it's the all-wheel drive system or what, but when you get it just on the edge or past, like it just holds on that little bit more, and you can pull off another half second off of a course, and that's the most rewarding thing about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely love that.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn, has there been any kind of like mechanical issues or mistakes that you may have made during those championship runs that you pulled through and obviously came out on top?
There has been all of the mechanical issues throughout the years. I think the first year I won in 2022, right before the finals, the car was sitting there idling, and I'm like, could hear this kind of rattle or whatever. Open up the hood, and this is probably 5 minutes before we're supposed to go out and do our final 3 runs. And we look inside, and there's an idler pulley down by the frame on the left side, on the passenger side of the engine, and it is all the way out and touching the frame. And the idler pulley is just about, it's still working, it's on the belt, but it's just about falling out. And Ronnie Solomon comes over, grabs a 14-wheel wrench, and he starts cranking it in. And there's no space because it's up against the frame, like pushing the motor over even. And I think with like 30 seconds left, I'm getting in the car with my helmet on, putting my seatbelts on. Ron's still under the car's still on jack stands. He's tightening up the bolt, and he's like, all right, I got it, start it. And we take off with like 30 seconds to go, and ended up doing the 3 runs. And I'm worried the whole time kind of that this pulley's going to fall off. I'm going to lose my water pump. Car's going to overheat. And luckily it held on. Ronnie had it just tight enough or cross-threaded or whatever it was, but just made it in enough time to win my first King of the Mountain.
Wow, just in the nick of time.
Yeah, yep. And like I said, the year after that, I mean, I think I had a YouTube video on that one. We ended up breaking the crank in half, and there was all kinds of issues I was having before in the day, like really small things. The starter was skipping a little bit earlier in the day, kind of during the second day autocross, and couldn't figure out what it was. Starter kept skipping. It would work sometimes, skip sometimes, and the crank had already broken then, but we didn't know what the issue was because it was pushing the flywheel out a little further than it was. And yeah, throughout the weekend, obviously it got worse and worse. And right in the finals, I tried to take off and the car just would not go. So yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah, that is a heartbreaker for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Shawn, we talked about, the shootout kind of style format that King of the Mountain has, but also the days leading up to with the quote unquote kind of standard autocross. Do you change your strategy between the two types?
So getting into the shootout is one strategy. So I like to be quick and clean, kind of my first 2 or 3 runs. You want to be clean and consistent with no cones and post a decent time. If you can do that, then you can shoot for a little bit faster time in the afternoon. If you're dirty in the morning, it really creeps up on you and you get some anxiety because you really need to put a run down then. And that's when you start to make mistakes. I've done that in past years where you get behind a little bit and you're down to only, your last 2 or 3 runs and you're trying to go fast and you pick up another cone and it just gets to you. So it's very important to be consistent and have a clean run in your first 1, 2, or 3 runs. And then you can kind of relax and get yourself into the weekend. And then the second day is the same thing. It depends on where you're at. If you're sitting 1, 2, or if you're sitting 8, 9, it all depends. You got to get your time somehow. So the cleaner you can be all weekend, the easier it's going to be on you to drive fast.
That makes sense. Less mistakes you make, the less you have to push it, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I've gotten caught in that a couple times. The one year that was really bad for me, the car wasn't doing what I wanted it to do and kept hitting cones. And that's the first time I think I've ever been actually frustrated. I ended up leaving the event early because I was just disappointed kind of in myself and in the car and everything. And it was just a rough weekend, but we came back again.
Yep. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, I know you said you only do like 1 or 2 leading up to King of the Mountain. If you're going to like a new autocross event and, maybe you haven't seen this place before, how do you kind of prepare before you get there? Like maybe the course layout, track conditions, things like that.
I guess I don't really prepare. The only thing I would do is probably ask people who are there, what's going on with this course, what to look out for, I guess. A lot of times we go to proving grounds every year and there's autocrosses there that we work. And I usually don't even see the course until it's my first run. So like I'm pretty good at adapting to and reading the cones, like the course that's in front of me. Because there's obviously pointer cones and all that stuff, and you can read kind of what the whole course is going to look like when you're on it. So I've gotten really good at just adapting to new situations.
Okay. I like that. Like I said, when I was doing those ride-alongs, when we were at the starting line, I feel like that was the kind of time where I'm watching the car in front of us do its thing, and then is that kind of how you like? Okay, well that, then this, then that kind of thing.
Yeah, yep. It's watch the guys in front of you, I guess. I'll watch just a couple runs like when it's not my turn to race, I guess, and that's without walking the course. I got into that in time attack, kind of learned how to get up to speed quicker. We had a time attack event for grid life at Mid Ohio, and there was rain forecasted all weekend. And the very first session was the only dry session we had that weekend, and it was my first time at the track. And obviously didn't run well. I didn't post a fast time. It was my first time on the track, and I kind of made a mental note of like, you really need to prepare and be ready like immediately when the time is there. You know what I mean? If you have a dry track or whatever it is, same with autocross if you get rain or something like that. But you really got to be prepared for everything and do as much as you can when the time is right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you can lose your opportunity quick if it rains out.
Well, Shawn, I would imagine this is one of those things, winning 2 championships. It's something that's probably impossible by yourself. So I want to talk about the people that support you, crew, friends, sponsors. How important it is having your team to lead to these 2 championships.
It all comes down to, friends and family. A lot of guys have helped me over the years. Kind of one of the things that I really rely on is I have a lot of friends that are a lot smarter than me. So I kind of have a direction that I want to go with cars and stuff like that. And I rely on a lot of other people who are really smart in like certain areas. Like obviously Ronnie Solomon builds all my motors, tunes the car, is kind of that setup guy. I work a lot with Mike Lewin from Professional Awesome Racing. He helped me with a bunch of aero and car setup stuff with suspension and all kinds of stuff like that. Andy Smedegard is a big help. He took me for my first ride in my Evo after I kind of did a whole bunch of mods to it and didn't really know what it could do. I sat passenger seat for 1 lap at Brainerd International Raceway. And the very next session, I think I dropped 3 seconds in time. So stuff like that has really helped me along the way. Jeremy Swenson, we drove all over the country for years and years doing time attack. Just talking with him, and he's also an excellent driver. Just learning from him and, how he sets up a car, how he drives, how competitive he is. I mean, all of that has helped throughout the years. Had plenty of friends just around here locally. We have a local racetrack that we have a shop at, and just talking to all those guys too. And anybody, if you're working on a car, everybody there is there to help you. It's kind of the car community. So I can thank kind of the whole car community for my success.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that a lot, Shawn, because I feel like there's people that I know are kind of experts at one thing or a certain field that I reach out to kind of pick their brain on certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many different systems and parts of a car. I mean, there's 5,000 parts on the Evo. You can't be an expert in all of that, but there is one expert on every single one of them. You just have to find them.
Yeah. Now, obviously, King of the Mountain is kind of a given in your schedule for the year. How do you plan the other events that you go to?
It's kind of just by preference, I guess, and budget. I mean, if I don't have money to go to an event, I don't go. I used to be a lot more frivolous with all grid life's time attack and stuff like that. But, life, you get older and life happens and you end up not doing as much racing as you want to. But King of the Mountain is one that I'll probably go to every year. And it basically just relies on like the budget if I have any more events to go to.
That makes sense. And correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, but isn't King of the Mountain kind of invite only? I guess, you being a 2-time champion, you're always going to get an invite.
Yep, that's one of the perks. We get an invite every year. Uh-huh. Yeah, it all depends on who you know, I guess. If if you're a fast driver, you can usually get in. Like if you know some people or whatever, you've won some events and you talk to the right people, they can get a hold of Ryan and you can usually get in somehow. That's how I got in my first time. But yeah, just you got to be fast.
Got to be fast. And, one thing that we haven't really mentioned is that the championship check is $10,000. So it's obviously a very prestigious event.
Yep, it's treated me well over the years.
That is for sure. Shawn, do you have any like pre-race rituals or anything that you do? I know some guys, they gotta, take a shit before a run or something like that.
No, I don't really have any pre-race rituals. I'll go over video and stuff like that beforehand. I don't really do data logging for autocross. I'll do more of that for time attack. But I don't know. My biggest thing is just being focused and staying calm, cool, collected before you go out. Kind of having a clear head and just attacking the course.
Love it. Well, I know we talked about, reaching out to experienced autocrossers, but besides that, if I'm wanting to take autocross more seriously, I'm going to my local events, I'm winning every weekend. I want to get more serious and start doing some regional events. What are the top 3 things that I should focus on for, not just myself, my car, everything about my campaign?
Yeah, for someone who wants to enter autocross more seriously, obviously, reliability is a big thing. Your car has to be able to perform. My biggest thing would be to kind of work up to your pace. I know a lot of people just want to go out on autocross and go as fast as they possibly can, but you'll learn a lot more driving slower and then getting faster and faster and faster and working up to pace and learning kind of what the car can do. And then obviously the third thing I had was ask questions to everybody and talk to everybody. That's going to be your quickest way to learn about events, learn about car setup, tires, all that stuff is just talking to all the people that are at the event.
Okay. I like that, kind of picking their brain and seeing what maybe their setup is.
Yep. Everybody loves to talk cars. So you can walk up to anybody and they'll give you any piece of information you want.
Now, Shawn, when I'm spending money on my car, wanting to get more serious in autocross, how do I pick where to invest my money? Tires, suspension, aero, engine, things like that.
Yeah, that's kind of all preference, I think. I'm kind of a happy medium guy, so that's kind of my motto. Do a little bit here, there, and everywhere. I wouldn't go for just like, all power right away, and then later I'll get tires. You know what I mean? Especially if you're new to it, I would just work on like the small things. Get set of tires is obviously kind of the best thing that you can do starting out. And then I would probably work on suspension and balance. Not so much suspension mods, but getting the balance of the car down. That's kind of one thing I was super late on. I didn't know how a car should handle. Everything I owned understeered like crazy, and I just thought the car was hard to drive or didn't have grip or whatever, but there's things you can do to obviously change how a car is set up. So yeah, tires and getting the car balanced. And another big thing would be when you're talking to all these people at autocrosses and stuff, if you can, a lot of people aren't up for it, but drive each other's cars or ride with each other, because you'll feel that's where you feel the biggest difference in like your car. You're like, okay, my car does this, it handles great. You drive somebody else's and you're like, wow, I really, really like the way that car handles. What did you do to it? So you can learn a lot from different people just by driving everybody's cars.
That makes a lot of sense. So Shawn, obviously, the car community is huge. What are some common misconceptions that the community and maybe everyday people have about autocross, and car control at these slower speeds?
I don't know if there's any misconceptions about autocross.
So I feel like when I talk to, fellow drag racers, I feel like they think the autocross is easy.
It's definitely not easy. I mean, no part of racing is easy. I don't think. They all have their super intricate things that you need to know about each certain type of racing. You can think of autocross easy because it's just turn here, turn there. But when you really get down to how competitive it is, like you have to know a lot of different things in order to make a car first of all, get a car fast and then be able to drive it fast. There's a lot of different steps that you need to take.
And that kind of backs up what others have said on this podcast about circuit racers make terrible autocrossers, but autocrossers make great circuit racers, kind of thing. I think that goes hand in hand in what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Shawn, is there obviously data is very important in this day and age, and our ECUs give us more than enough data to gather and make judgments on. Do you find data acquisition or data logging or some kind of gear, even like a draggy or something like that, just indispensable, something that helps you out, even doing like video reviews?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the years, I've used AIM Solo 2 data loggers is probably one of the biggest ones I've used. Mainly for time attack. I've never used it for autocross because autocross you can get super. I don't want to say you can get too technical into autocross. I think autocross is more of like a little more of a flow kind of thing. Whereas, a road course, you have a lot of time to dissect speed and corners and all that stuff. So you have a lot more time, but autocross is super quick reactions. So, obviously video review, I do that kind of after every autocross run, but once you have your line down, it's hard to dissect problems and stuff. It's more of just you overshot that corner a little bit too much speed, that kind of stuff. But yeah, data logging is kind of a huge one for circuit racing. I haven't got into like the I can't remember what software it is the guys use for autocross, but I haven't used that before.
Okay. Shawn, I know you mentioned a lot of names during this episode, but are there any drivers or cars that you like particularly study and admire?
I don't really guess. I guess I don't have any pro drivers. Just some of my friends that are really good wheelmen. Jeremy Swenson, obviously one of them. Andy Smedegard, Brandon Ranvek, kind of the guys from up my neck of the woods, I guess. Tom O'Gorman, obviously a pro racer, great driver. Driven against him in quite a few things. But yeah, that's just friends and family, I guess, that I've always looked up to and kind of learned from.
Okay. I think that's perfectly fine. Well, Shawn, one of my biggest, when I was kind of researching and thinking of what questions to ask you, one of the things that, came to my mind first was what's left for you to achieve in autocross? After winning the championship twice, it's hard to go up from here, I would imagine.
I mean, you can always win 3 times, but I've always wanted to go. I've never gone to nationals before, the SCCA nationals. So that's one thing I would love to go to. The only problem is they have so many rules to build a car for. I would have to co-drive somebody's car. So if anybody's open for a co-drive, I would love to go to that someday.
I would think that you would be top of the list for talent to drive somebody's car.
You never know, but I hope so.
And I know you talked about, doing some grid life and some time attack things. Do you ever think about maybe branching into that kind of more?
I'd love to get back into time attack. I love doing street mod at grid life. I don't really like the layout that they have or the event setup anymore. It's kind of taken away from just straight lap times in time attack, I guess, but we'd love to do that again. I did one wheel to wheel race in the Evo, and it was obviously the wrong car for it. But I would love to do some wheel to wheel someday. I also have a drift car that I built a couple years ago, so I've been getting into drift, and I don't know, we're kind of hitting them all already, but none of them that I really want to go like professional in or anything like that, or that I even could. But it just takes up too much time to be traveling all the time and be on the road.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think that it's kind of a good thing for everyone to kind of dip their toes into other motorsports and kind of see, maybe turns out you like one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Drifting has been the biggest eye opener. Obviously I love, time trials and being competitive and stuff like that. And drifting is more of like it's more of like a fun feeling. Like you're out there with your buddies having fun and just, ripping tires and engines and that type of stuff. It's more of like I don't know, you're on a high from just like having a good time, basically. It's all it is. Unless you're breaking stuff, obviously. But like when you go out drifting, it's so much fun to be out there sliding sideways with your buddies.
That's awesome. I love that. I definitely, I've never done a ride along or a drift myself, but it certainly looks like a ton of fun.
Well, if you ever make it up to North Dakota, you give me a call.
You got it. Well, Shawn, where can people find and follow you on social media so they can see this Evo and what you're doing with it?
You can find me Krebsbach Racing on Instagram and YouTube. I post YouTube videos every, 6 months or so. And I'll go do a couple in a row, but I haven't posted in a while. And then obviously my Facebook page, just under my name, Shawn Krebsbach. Those are the places you can find me. I post on Instagram probably the most, and then some of the bigger stuff like events or car builds and stuff like that, I'll post on my YouTube.
Perfect. And at the end, Shawn, I always give people a chance to give a thanks or shout out to anybody who's helped get the car where it is, anybody who's helped get themselves where they are. Is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or shout out to?
Absolutely. Like it's basically all my friends and family that I've talked about throughout the podcast. A lot of friends here, shop mates that have helped me with cars. The people that rent my shop with me, obviously. I want to give a big shout out to all of the event organizers, because without them, we wouldn't have any place to race. So places like Grid Life, UMI, obviously, SCCA, those type of event organizers have been huge. Love working with them, love going to their events. And obviously, I'm a car nut, so they're my favorite.
Absolutely. Big shout out to those guys. Even the ones that I don't attend or have no interest in, I appreciate supporting the car community as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. There's way too many that you can go to, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shawn, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know you're a busy guy, and King of the Mountain is right around the corner. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share your story and share the story of your Evo. I definitely enjoyed this one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for finally getting together with me. Or thanks for me for actually having the time.
I'm glad we worked it out.
Yeah, and thanks for being a bug on my back, trying to get me here.
Anytime. I'm definitely, I want to make it out to King of the Mountain one of these times. I get too many events in August this year, but I have to see this thing in action. It looks like so much fun when I'm live streaming it.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's not too far away. I can pick you up on the way.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the MitusTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitusTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.